Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the full moon in Leo taking place on February 12th. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy of the week ahead and how you can integrate it into your personal and spiritual growth. So, a few things before I do a deep dive into this full moon. I think this full moon is going to have a lot of surprises, a lot of revelations, a lot of insights, potentially a lot of creative opportunities for those of you who are creatives. Whether it is that you feel uh, some sort of like inspiration to put something out there, or you might even, receive an opportunity. One of the things that I've been noticing, particularly in during Aquarius season, is how filled with opportunities this season has been. Now, even if opportunities haven't manifested themselves from someone else to you, if they haven't come your way, I think a lot of the opportunity is in daring to do something, being innovative, daring to think differently, daring to send the email, daring to have certain conversations, daring to create certain content, put yourself out there more, right? So, this full moon in particular, obviously, we're in Aquarius season, is a sign ruled by Uranus, and this full moon has a very particular connection to the planet Uranus, which I'll get to in a second. But wherever Uranus is involved, it is about the interruption of a pattern that used to feel very comfortable to us. So, the interruption of a pattern can be a changing of habits, releasing something that you're addicted to, right? A breakthrough in thought and realizing, oh, that thought doesn't define me anymore. But these breakthroughs are also breaking out, breaking free, liberating the self, which are all Uranian themes, from any constructs that either society put us in or we internalized and therefore put ourselves in, right? So recently I ran into a reel on Instagram where Barack Obama was talking about not letting anyone convince you that you do not belong in a particular place, at the particular table, right? Or in a particular room with certain people. And the reason for that is that he was explaining how he and Michelle, when they were coming up, they realized that they were able to get into Harvard. And then once they were into Harvard, they were realizing, oh, there are some really intelligent, good people here. And there are also a lot of fools that are in here, right? And he was talking about how during his presidency, he would go into rooms with world leaders and realize the same thing. There are some really intelligent, good people here, some really great leaders here, and there are some people in here who should not be running countries. The reason that I really love that reel and that I think is so indicative of this full moon in Leo is that so much of the Aquarian energy that we're experiencing, especially Pluto in Aquarius, has to do with the facade that we are leaving behind, or the facade that we are finally seeing through of only certain people are special, or only certain people are talented, only certain people deserve opportunities, only certain people deserve to be in certain rooms. And we can see it. We can see how that kind of elitist type of groups or attitude has been dismantling since I would say like the last quarter of 2024. And we can see it with celebrity news everywhere, for instance, right? And so this full moon in Leo to me is the reminder of how am I showing up in my life as the person that I am now, right? Because Leo rules the sun rules our identity, our vitality, our ego, right? So anything that anyone knows us as, right? Out in the world, how are they beginning to see us differently? Because we began to see ourselves differently, because we decided, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to delve into that. I'm going to dare to do the thing. Okay. So I thought that that was a really perfect thing for someone who's a Leo, because Barack Obama is a Leo himself, to say, don't let anybody convince you that you don't deserve a seat at the table. So, with all that said, let's do a deep dive into this full moon. As I mentioned, this full moon in Leo takes place on February 12th. This full moon in Leo closes off a 6-month energetic window of time that started with the new moon in Leo of August 4th, 2024. So, why is that important to understand? Because full moon times are usually times of manifestation of something that we set the intention for 6 months prior with the new moon of that sign. In this case, the new moon in Leo of August 4th, 2024. So, if you are someone who set certain intentions and actually committed yourself to those intentions, to the unfolding of those intentions of your creativity at that time, I invite you to think back to what that was around August and what is unfolding itself for you, manifesting itself for you now, right? That new moon in Leo of August 4th, 2024 was really significant because it was a season that we were already getting a little bit of a hint of anything that unfolded in September and October. And so perhaps if you think back to August, if you look back to your text messages, to your journals, to the history of your stories on Instagram, to your calendars, right? What were you doing at that time that had to do with, I want to put myself out there more. I want to learn to love differently. I want to express myself differently in the world. So, whenever we have a new moon in Leo, there is an invitation to say, this is how I step into my light without regard of what others are going to think, of what others are going to say. Leo is also the sign of the heart, it's also the sign of love. So, for a lot of people, this may have been a turning point in either their personal relationships or in the relationship within themselves, where they started thinking, I no longer want love to look this way for me. And so I'm going to work on myself so that love looks differently, whether it's self-love, um, or love with another, right? And so fast forward 6 months to this full moon in Leo. What are you noticing around several themes, right? For some creatives, it was, wow, I started something around August creatively. I started either creating more content or marketing myself more. And now I'm really reaping the benefits of having started that 6 months ago. If this has to do with relationships for you, what shifted around that time, again, and how you want to experience love in relationships? And what are you realizing now based on that initial thought back in August? What is manifesting itself right now? One of the things that you want to keep in mind is that the weekend of February 1st, we had the triple conjunction between Venus, North Node, and Neptune. I talked a little bit about that as that energy being something that we either realized someone's true colors, we either saw behind the facade of how they present themselves, right, to others or in relationship, and realized, you know what? Where I'm going, this person probably can't come with me. Or the flip side, and a much more healing expression of that energy is no, we've really come far. We've learned a lot about each other. There is a different sense of compassion and love for one another. And so we're going to move forward together in a much wiser way. The reason that it's important for you to understand where relationships stand for you right now is because this full moon in Leo energy is asking you to step into the light of your life in the most honest and authentic expression of yourself. And relationships play a massive role in this because at the time of this full moon in Leo, Venus is in Aries and is at 5 degrees Aries. You have to remember that Venus is going to retrograde. Therefore, when Venus retrogrades, it's going to go back into Pisces. When it goes direct, then it's going to move through Pisces and then go back into Aries. So the next time that Venus is at 5 degrees Aries is going to be on May 9th. Why does all of this matter? Because anything that is coming up with this full moon for you around relationships and you recognizing, no, this is who I really am now, and realizing these are the relationships that are going to move forward with me and not, you will move through eclipse season, the Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde, and come May, which is Taurus season, come May 9th specifically, by that time, there will be a very, very grounded clarity around who can really come with you in this next chapter of life. Okay, why does this matter? If you look at the sun here in Aquarius in conjunction to Mercury in Aquarius, right? The sun is at 24 degrees Aquarius, Mercury is at 26 degrees Aquarius. On Sunday, February 9th, we had an exact conjunction, right, between the sun and Mercury. This is important because, especially in Aquarius, it can represent a few things. It can represent, receiving news, surprising news that comes from out of nowhere, receiving, again, opportunities, but also a lot of clarity about the future. Mercury in Aquarius, I'm thinking Mercury about the future Aquarius. And here is the light of the sun, the light of my life as I am right now, illuminating what I genuinely want, right? And this full moon in Leo is saying, and this is where my heart really is right now. It's it's really about accepting yourself, accepting, these perceived limitations or perceived imperfections about yourself, and really recognizing I deserve to live a life that I love. That may seem like something very obvious, but it's not. And here's why. Here's the indicator of how I know that. Because this full moon, right, creates a square to Uranus and Taurus. And Uranus and Taurus is about the interruption of a pattern, the breaking free from something that has either felt stagnant, something that has felt too safe, even if it's chaotic, something that has felt too comfortable, even if it doesn't, support our growth in the future. And this full moon, the moon represents how we feel emotionally safe in the world. And in Leo is saying, I want to experience joy. I want to experience love. I want to experience my light in this world without any thoughts, any limiting belief systems, anything in my nervous system blocking that, but also in relationship, anyone who doesn't support that, I don't want it, right? This full moon, creating a connection to Uranus and Taurus, anything that feels like it's caging us, anything that feels like we're being controlled, like we're being manipulated, right? And those are lower expressions of Taurus energy: control, manipulation, possessiveness, jealousy. In Uranus, right? Uranus is saying we're cutting those habits. We're cutting those patterns. No, 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 no. That doesn't belong here. And this full moon in Leo will very clearly, very dramatically perhaps say, no, I am going to break free from anything that wants to dim my light. Because whenever we talk about Leo, we have to talk about how are we shining our light in this world, right? So That's going to look very differently for different people. For some people, it's going to be the light of, their expression, their creativity, perhaps in front of a camera, on stage, um, through actual creative endeavors. For others, if it has nothing to do with that, is how do I feel like I can actually experience the warmth of my own light, the warmth of my own heart in my life just on daily living? It's important to understand that because, again, the Sun and Mercury are in Aquarius. Aquarius is a sign of freedom, liberation, liberty, does not want to be caged, right? Uranus and Taurus is saying anything that feels that way, nope, it doesn't belong here anymore. We're cutting that pattern, right? We are interrupting that way of being. We are eliminating that way of existing, either with ourselves or in partnership. The moon in Leo is saying, because I want to experience joy, because I want to experience the warmth of my own light in my life. So, this is an interesting full moon because collectively, from a collective perspective, I feel that the week of February 10th is going to come with a lot of news, a lot of surprises, um, and a lot of drama, right? It's a full moon in Leo. Leo loves drama. And a lot of drama that is going to tug at our emotional strings. So be so mindful of what you're paying attention to. Be mindful that you are not getting swept up by headlines, by the news. Stay as grounded as possible. I anticipate that's probably going to, again, be a little difficult because this is a full moon. With full moons, people tend to be emotional anyway. This is a full moon in Leo. There's a dramatic flare. Things may be blown out of proportion. And the square to Uranus just adds to that sense of, I don't know what's coming, feeling like out of our body, like our nervous system being either in shock or in freeze. So be mindful of that because collectively this energy lends itself again for a lot of drama. Um, to say the least, right? And this isn't to minimize anything that's going on in the world, but that's not my focus. My focus is personal and spiritual astrology. But it's important to understand it because if this full moon is showing us that we can have a breakthrough about how we want to experience our life, and we are just walking through life being reactive to everything that we see and we hear, then we are not grounded and self-possessed. Then all of a sudden, that lower expression of Taurus energy, Uranus and Taurus, of possession, manipulation, jealousy, control, all of a sudden, external forces are actually creating that within us. External forces are actually controlling us, manipulating us, possessing our attention, possessing our sense of value and worth. You want to be so mindful of that because in a higher expression, this full moon can be the realization of, no, I am not defined by that external reality. Look, one of the things that we have to keep in mind with the North Node transiting the sign of Pisces and creating a connection to Neptune, headed towards a connection to Saturn, is that we have to remember from a very metaphysical 5D perspective, is that the universe is inside of us. The universe is inside of us. And so when we make time and space to go within, we are actually connecting with the all that actually is. Pisces in the zodiac is the reminder that our imagination is what is actually real, and that the 3D reality, which is our external reality, is a projection of the collective. We have to start prioritizing the truth that the universe exists within us. And when we spend time in there and we remember the truth of who we really are, we remember that we can create our own reality. One of the reasons that I think that this full moon in Leo, from a collective perspective, is going to bring a lot of loudness, right? And again, drama and intrigue, is I honestly believe that there is an awareness of the spiritual collective awakening that is happening at this moment in time by all, especially by institutions of power. And they are doing everything and anything they can at a very rapid pace to keep you distracted, in a state of chaos, in a state of fear. And that has always perhaps been the agenda and the case, but now more than ever. Because what I've come to realize is that I think that, again, there is an awareness of the spiritual awakening that is actually happening, which is why it's so important that you liberate yourselves from being told what your life is going to look like and start looking within and start deciding how you want to experience your reality. If you take nothing else away from this full moon in Leo lesson, take this away. Because again, it's a full moon in Leo. Leo is the sign of the sun. The sun represents our identity, how we see ourselves, our ego in this reality. And so, are we going to let that continue being defined by external forces that tell us that we are not enough, we're not smart enough, we are not thin enough, we're not educated enough? Or are we going to take that power back and say, you know what? I am who I am. And I deserve to be at that table. I deserve to be in those rooms. I deserve to express myself. I deserve to love and be loved in a way that feels fulfilling to me. This is so big, you guys. This is so big. And the more distracted you are from the truth of who you really are, which is the universe itself, the more you will forget about the energy of love that actually exists within you and is what is actually helping you be the co-creator of your reality. One of the things that I like to remind people of is that we have to understand that we are here to live life on life's terms. And what I mean by that is that things will unfold as they will in our external reality. But we must never forget that the entire universe exists within us. That in itself is a different technology from which we function from, because the technology of co-creation, the technology of imagining, the technology of manifestation that exists within us is so activated right now with Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius at the time of this full moon in Leo is creating a sextile to Venus in Aries. Venus in Aries is going to touch on things like, what is the relationship to my sense of self? What is the relationship to courage? What is a new way that I am deciding to make money? What is a new way that I am deciding to relate? And the connection to Pluto in Aquarius is saying, think outside the box. Think outside of the way that you have done these things and take the leap of faith, right? So and that leap of faith looks differently for different people. For some people, the leap of faith is saying, you know what, I'm going to leave that old career behind and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for my business. I'm going to go for my thing. For others, the leap of faith is saying, initially, I actually believe that I can do that. Now, the intensity of the connection between Pluto in Aquarius and Venus in Aries can feel a little intimidating. Can feel a little intimidating, but you are at a point where it's like, what's the alternative? To go back to the way that I used to do things, to go back to having the same fights in relationship, to go back to feeling unsafe in my relationships, to go back to friendships where people are not genuinely happy for me, to go back to a job that is not fulfilling, to continue pushing forward in things that I know deep down in my soul I have outgrown. So the intensity of that is very real. And the connection that this full moon has to Uranus, again, the disruptor of patterns, it's going to disrupt a pattern in our lives that has made us feel safe, usually, I think, safe from a space of not feeling enough, like I'll stay in this relationship because I don't think that I can get a better one. Um, I won't date because I don't think that anyone will love me. I won't go after that job because I don't think I'm qualified. I won't do that talk because I don't know what to say. I need more education. So much of that creates a sense of comfort that this Uranus and Taurus is trying to break us free from. One more thing that I will say is that at the time of this full moon, Mars retrograde is now stationed. That means that it's no longer going to go back in degrees anymore. It's kind of halted and it's getting ready to wake up. It's getting ready to go direct, right? Um, and that won't happen till February 23rd. But why does it matter that Mars is stationed retrograde in Cancer right now? Because when Mars is stationed, if this energy feels like too much, Mars, when it doesn't know what to do, the planet of action, the planet of aggression, the planet of anger, the planet of resentment, can be very, very impulsive. So you want to mind your impulsivity. And if you're coming from a place of impulsivity, you have to ask yourself, where am I not being honest about my life and where I want it to be? Because it is only when we are trying to break free from something that doesn't feel honest to us that we make impulsive decisions. Because it is a form of sabotaging something that we want to get out of or something that we genuinely don't feel we deserve. And Mars retrograde in Cancer has been all about healing trauma, healing wounds around family, mother, um, limiting belief systems that came from our ancestors, really getting in touch with pent up resentment, pent up anger, right? And that Mars stationed retrograde is creating a square to Chiron in Aries. We cannot escape some of the lessons that sting with this. It's a very honest full moon. It's almost like it's putting it all out there, right? So on the one hand, it's about if we want to step into a new space, it's about saying, look, this is me. This is what I do. This is what I don't do. These are my qualifications. These are not. You like it or you don't, right? And being okay with understanding that whatever is meant for you will not miss you. Anywhere where Aquarius and Uranus are involved, it is an invitation to show up as our most authentic self. And one of the evolutionary processes of Leo energy is the willingness to show yourself in your full light, even if, even if you run the risk of looking foolish, right? Or not being fully appreciated. If you are in a space where you are not fully appreciated in whatever area of your life that is, then that is a sign from the universe that that's just simply where you don't belong, right? If the love isn't being reciprocated, then why would you want to be there? Because the point here is to understand that you get to love yourself, that you give yourself the permission to say, if this isn't the place, if this isn't the person, if this isn't the space within myself that I want to be in, then I give myself permission to pivot and really land in a place that feels honest to me. And how will you know that? Because wherever Uranus and Taurus is involved, it has everything to do with our nervous system, with the body's intuition. Does my body expand or contract at the thought of hanging out with someone, working with someone, going to work? How does my body feel? Do I dread it or do I look forward to it? one very last thing that I'll say about this full moon. If there are things that you have been moving towards, that you have been perhaps pursuing or chasing, and you've just met roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, I would say that you want to pay attention to that pattern because there is something about the roadblock pattern that is trying to redirect you somewhere else. And if you pay attention between this full moon and the end of February, you will understand where you are trying to be redirected to. Okay. As always, may this be of service. Your eclipse guides are coming on February 12th, so be mindful of that. And by the way, this eclipse guide is going to include a bonus Zoom call with me because March is going to be an intense month. It's going to be an intense eclipse season. So I did want to create the space for anyone who buys the guide for us to come together in community on Zoom. Really looking forward to that because my intention there is to, create a more intimate space, guide you through a meditation to see what's really meant to come up for you during this eclipse season, but also to get to know you a little bit more intimately. Again, may this be of service. So much love to you. I'll talk to you next week. Take care.